What's up? This is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. Now, who's ready for some fighting words? In this video, I want to do a fight recap for Tszyu and Tony Harrison. It took a little while. I wanted to see what other people were saying. I never like to do a fight recap right after. I want to look at the fight again and, you know, do my own assessment without listening to other people and give their little, take in the moment. But let's jump into this. Let's see, what went wrong in this fight? Actually, before that, if you like the videos, please like, please share, please subscribe to the channel. If you have done so recently, I would like to say thank you and welcome. Also, people, we are very close to being monetized. We're very close to getting to our goal. So, let's just keep pushing. Please share the videos if you like the videos. If you don't like the videos, please share the videos. But if you like the videos, please share the videos. And let's try to grow this channel. There's a lot of channels out there, and I don't feel like they're honest. I don't feel like they're fair. And from day one, that has always been my reserve, to be honest and be fair, and also have something where parents could sit down with their kids and listen to, without a whole lot of just cursing and bad talking and slanderous speech. So I wanted to give something that a parent can rest free, knowing that their kid won't pick up a lot of bad habits or anything like that. But like I said, without further ado, let's jump into this video. So the first thing that struck me in this fight was, I don't know why Tony Harrison is not using his legs. I said that would be his key to victory. He had to move. He had to be mobile. He couldn't sit still. And that's the first thing he does is he plants his feet. And again, Tony Harrison, and I said this, a lot of people really downed me for saying that Tony Harrison was going to lose. But number one, I was right. And number two, he lost the way I said he was going to lose. I said he was going to be on those ropes. I said it was going to be uppercuts. And that's exactly what happened. I said that he couldn't afford to stand in front of Tszyu. And that's exactly what he did. And he succumbed to the punishment. He succumbed to just a relentless onslaught. And that's exactly what happened. I said Tony Harrison, if he's going to be successful in this fight, he would have to use his legs. He could never at any point think to stand his ground. And that's exactly the thing that he thinks he's going to do. He has a habit, and he has shown has had a habit in his history of doing what his opponent does, or doing something out of the ordinary. Do what got you to the dance. You guys have heard me say it time and time again. Do what has gotten you to the dance. If you using the ring, if you boxing, if you slipping and moving, if you just being on the move has gotten you to the dance, don't think today is going to be the day where you show off how durable your chin is. Do what's gotten you to the dance, and that might actually be the key to your victory. But he did not do that. Let's see. Tim, like I said, his objective was to put Tony in the ropes, and that's exactly what he did. And one thing I want to, there's a lot of things I want to credit with Tim, but one thing in particular was his great countering. He countered very beautifully. It was like Tony didn't give Tim the amount of credit he deserved after the fight. And listen, you just got beat up by the guy. I don't expect you to. Not to mention, all your marbles are still kind of spinning around, so I don't expect you to give a proper assessment. But one of the one things that Tony did get right was Tszyu was very sharp. Tszyu had great countering throughout the whole entire fight. And there was never a time where I felt like Tony had gotten control of the fight or anything like that. It was always Tim getting the last of any exchange. And unlike Tony, Tim was getting the last of those exchanges cleanly. Why? Because Tony didn't move his legs. That's why he got the better of the exchanges in the end. Tony would clip Tim with something, and Tim would fire back with at least 2-3 shots. And it worked over and over and over again. And Tim wasn't as predictable as Tony thought he was. Like I said, he had a lot of... Does he have the biggest arsenal in the world? No. But let's just say I have 3 punches. If I rotate them, or just mix them up, you still don't know what's coming at you. Regardless of the fact that I may not have as big an arsenal as you, you still don't know what's coming at you at any particular time. Let's see. Tony never let his hands go. That's another thing that irked me. In both Charlo fights, Tony let his hands go. Like, he let his hands go. In his last fight prior to this fight, he let his hands go. And, you know, well, I'm going to mention this later on, but I'll say it again. Well, I'll say it first now. Tony seemed very old. He moved very old. He didn't have what he normally has in the ring, and he looked very old. He looked very old in his movement. He looked very old in his punches. He didn't have the speed that he had in previous fights. One fight previous, he didn't have that speed. It was gone. And, you know, those are signs, people. You can't take too many more of these. You can't take too many more of these beatings. That's a sign. He was not that fast. Tim Tszyu is not particularly fast. He has good timing, but he's not a fast guy. He's not regarded for his hand speed. And they were about even. I mean, Tim was clipping him up. Let's see. Tim's movement. So do I think Tim has great head movement? No. But I want to credit some of that lack of head movement to the fact that he wasn't fearing what was coming back at him. I want to suggest that. He wasn't fearing necessarily what was coming back at him. And as opposed to that, well, if I don't fear it, and I know you can't knock me out with it, I'm not necessarily going to get out of range, you know, when I properly position myself, just to have to work to get this position back once you miss, even if you hit me. So, no, I would just rather you know, do the little pop that you're doing, because Tony seemed very timid in his punches. It was very evident, very clear early that Tim was the harder puncher. And even more clear in Tony Harrison's body language as he kept flinching. You know, he was flinching a lot. You know, a lot of that looked like fainting, but it wasn't. He was flinching. And again, credit that to Tim Tszyu. He was flinching. A lot of that wasn't fainting. It was flinching. There's a difference. One is to set you up or to get you to react to something. Another one is flat out fear, period. He gets that fear from being hit by Tim Tszyu, and that's where that came from. Let's see. Tony didn't do anything but use his jab. Like, okay, you know, like if you want to get warmed up, fine. If anybody's been watching this channel long enough, you know how I feel about a jab. I like it when you're consistent with a jab. But I also would like to see you mix that jab up with other things. Finish the sequence off with other things. Don't just jab, 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 jab. Now you're predictable. Jab, 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 jab. Well, Tim also knows nothing else is coming at him, because you're just jabbing. And you're trying to keep a distance, but what difference does it make if you're going to keep the distance if you're not going to move your legs anyway? Like, you're not going to go from side to side. Another thing, Tony, where was his head movement? It was gone. I say by like round 4 or 5, it was completely gone. Let's see. So Tim was very paced because he knew he had a wounded dog. If you look, like I said, what looked like fainting, because, you know, when you listen to commentators, yes, there's guys who obviously know how to fight, but keep in mind those commentators could sometimes be swayed to a particular side. And they're talking about, well, you know, Tony's doing this and Tony's using feints. Tony was flinching, and Tim caught wind of that. And listen, that was another reason why Tim was able to get off those combos the way he got them off, because Tony was flinching. Tony realized very early, I can't keep getting hit in the head. And that's why Tim was sneaking those body shots in so perfectly. He was sneaking that shovel hook in there. And it was done beautifully the way he was doing it. It would just be one at a time, because you don't have to invest too much at any given time. Just one at a time. And a lot of times what he would do, Tim Tszyu, he would finish off a punch sequence with a sneak shovel hook. And it wasn't extra hard. He didn't put a whole lot of mustard on it. It was just bop. And that's all you need. That'll carry you to the next round. You can hit him like 2 more times with that same punch in the next round. That'll carry you over. And if you notice, Tony's getting slower and slower and slower and slower and slower. His hands are dropping lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And Tim Tszyu's, listen, one place you don't want to be, especially if you are not a power puncher, you don't want to be up on the ropes with Tim Tszyu. You don't want to be in a telephone booth with Tim Tszyu if you don't know how to crack. Let's see. Now, I don't know why. I really don't know why. And quite frankly, I'm charging his corner people. By round 5, Tony, it seemed like he completely given up hope. And he was just going to, at that point, not fight to win, but to fight to give a good showing. There's a difference. He's just trying to give a good performance at this point. Not to win, but to say, hey, look, I came and I gave it my all. I'm a tough guy for Detroit. And that's what it seemed like to me. That's what it felt like to me. That he was no longer trying to win the fight, but just trying to say after the fight, hey, I gave it my all. I gave 110%. And much credit to Tony Harrison because, honestly, after like round 5 and on, he was getting hit. And he could have easily taken the easy road out and said, you know what, no mas. He could have fallen from a lot of shots because he stumbled with a lot of shots, but he never went down. And we have to, listen, whether you like Tony Harrison or not, and I think Tony Harrison was a good thing for Australia. And not only did Australia treat Tony Harrison well, but Tony Harrison treated Australia well. And I think the Australian people could appreciate the fact that he fought hard and that he went out on his shield. I think Tim Tszyu can appreciate that he went out on his shield because he's the same type of guy. And I hope us, the viewers, the fans, you can appreciate that the way he went out because he didn't have to go out like that. Round 5 on in, he was getting done up. He was getting pieced up easily. And Tim had already, he long, closed that distance. But by round 5, he was in there. And there was no way or no how that Tony could get him back out to that safe place for him, that jabbing range. It was gone. And it was the beginning of the end. Round 5 is the beginning of the end. Let's see. Body shot, liver shot, uppercut. It's funny. Like I said, a lot of people said, a lot of negative things when I made my breakdowns. But everything came true. Everything came true. The keys to success for Tim Tszyu and what would lead to a loss for Tony Harrison. And it played out basically the way I said. Let's see. What I didn't like from Tim Tszyu, because there were a few things that I didn't like. And quite frankly, I'm going to credit this to 2 things. One, I think at this level, and we have to be honest, there is one thing that Tony Harrison said that was, basically true. That at this level, he is basically green. And this is a different caliber. This is a different level. This is a different tier. So let's see. I didn't like that Tim Tszyu was posting to punch. He was posting too much. And if you're unfamiliar with what I mean by posting, it's where you lock somebody in, you just post them up, and then you fire. He did it a lot. Now, that works with somebody like a Tony Harrison, who I said earlier left his legs at the hotel, who I said earlier, for some reason in this fight, was fighting like an old man, very slow. Didn't have his usual head movement or legs or anything. He just seemed ridiculously slower from the last fight. So it's easy to get away with that with an opponent like this. Also, an opponent who was already established to you hit harder than me, and every time you punch at me, I'm going to flinch. So for that reason, sure, you can get away with that. If you try to do that with Jermell Charlo, it's going to go very, very, very bad. Very bad. You will not be pushing Jermell Charlo back either. You two will be fighting for ground the whole time. You won't be pushing Charlo around the way you push Tony Harrison around. So we got to do something with the posting. Or if you want to be a little bit more slick with the posting, if you want to post with an elbow, that's cool. But to just keep posting like this and to have your head perfectly aligned and post like this and then fire off, you can't do that. Jermell Charlo is a different type of animal, and he's the champ for a reason. You cannot do that. That is a setup for definitely not for success. Listen, again, I'm going to credit this to the fact of how Tony fought. I'm going to credit this to how slow Tony was. The head movement from Tim Tszyu. You got to move your head, bro. You got to move your head, or you got to do a high guard. But it was literally just there. It was there. And Tim was so hungry for those power shots that he kind of, every once in a while, it's like if you look at the fight, especially after round 5, round 6, whatever, you would see Tim starting off the fight, the round like this, and then his guard would be super wide. And it's just like, all right, you got to tighten that up. I get it. Maybe you don't fear what's coming back at you. But number one, Tony Harrison does have a lot of knockouts. That's number one. And number two, you need to correct these things. You do. You need to correct these things. Just because you don't fear what's coming back at you doesn't mean you start doing sloppy work. You need to correct that. Let's see. And again, that's maybe because he didn't respect Tony at that point in the fight. Let's see. Tony standing totally still. Tim standing totally still. Like, when I say there was no movement, no real footwork in this fight, there was no movement and no real footwork from this fight. It's Tony pressing, Tim backing up. That's basically what transpired during the whole fight. I would like to see Tim with a wider stance. I think he could get a lot more power on those punches. You already naturally hit hard. You already naturally have heavy hands. But if you punch with a wider stance, I think you can get a lot more destructive with those punches. Let's see. Now I want to talk about the ref. I was disappointed with the ref. I think Tony was out of it long before it was actually stopped. And quite frankly, Tony should have not had to get punched into oblivion before, and being on the ground before the whole thing was stopped. I don't even understand why the ref, allowed him to stand back up and say, walk towards me. It should have been stopped, like, I don't know, maybe the 4th uppercut in from Tim Tszyu. It should have been stopped. When Tony's head is just bouncing up and down, it should have been stopped. Listen, here are the rules, because clearly the referee don't know the rules. If the guy is not responsive, if he's not fighting back, and I know what you're going to say, where Tony Harrison he threw a punch back, and then after that, he stopped because he was in limbo. So what happened was Tony should have been off of his feet, but he was suspended, and he was just sitting there. So technically, his body is done. His body is done. He should be on the ground. The only thing that didn't get the message was his legs at that point. But his head is gone. Everything waist up is gone. It's just his legs are they still have strength in them. That's it. But I credit that to the referee. That's how people lose their lives in the ring, people. We need a better referee than that. Like, I get it. It's a big promotion. And normally when there's a big promotion, the referee's like, I'm the last to step in here, when it's a big promotion like this and everybody and all these guys have showed up, the crowd's in the thousands. Yeah, but you also don't want to go to bed tonight knowing that somebody's in the hospital fighting for their lives because you didn't step in at a proper time. So, bad ref. Don't like that ref. Let's see. Overall, total domination from Tim Tszyu, like I said. Let's see. In my opinion, Tim Tszyu is ready for Jermell Charlo. In my opinion, he definitely is. In my opinion, listen, my biggest question, if you watched the previous videos, was if Tim Tszyu can finish off Tony Harrison, then that would answer the question if he's ready for Jermell Charlo. Not only did he finish Tony Harrison off, Tony Harrison is now contemplating retirement. So to say or to ask if Tim Tszyu is ready for Jermell Charlo, the answer is unequivocally yes. Tim Tszyu is ready to fight Jermell Charlo, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, when do we think we're going to see this fight? I don't know. Jermell Charlo's hand is still a little jacked up. But if I were Tim Tszyu, I would definitely continue to fight. And in the press conference, Tony Harrison said, he would be willing to help out in any way, shape, or form. He is a coach at the end of the day. In which case, Tim Tszyu's coach said that he would definitely be reaching out to Tony Harrison. Why? Because he fought Jermell Charlo twice. That's why. Now, in what capacity, I'm not sure. Tony Harrison is a coach. He is the head coach of the, undisputed champ, Alicia Baumgartner. So, okay, he could come in that capacity. Maybe he can come in as, I don't know, second in command, third in command, who knows? Or maybe he can come in as a sparring partner. I don't think that's actually the best thing, but I think they need to utilize his brain his knowledge, because he has a lot in there to share. But overall, great fight. I'm so happy for Tim Tszyu. And please like, subscribe to the channel. As you see, once again, I was correct. And as you see, everything that I said came true. So I need you guys to please ride with me. And there's a lot more videos coming. So just please be expecting those. And thank you so much.